tend to get motion sickness, you'll get seasick really easily. Okay? So all this chaos is going on, all this confusion. And where's Jonah? Where's Jonah while all this is going on? In verse 5.
I think he's down in the bottom.
But Jonah had gone below deck, where he lay down and fell into a deep sleep. He not only was in the bottom of the boat, but he was asleep in the bottom of the boat. Now we got to get the picture of what's going on, right? The world all around Jonah is in this chaotic mess. He's in this big, terrible storm. Not any usual storm, because we're told God is in control of it. The boat's about to be ripped apart, and yet Jonah is somehow asleep. As I mentioned last week, I believe he is possibly suffering from a deep state of depression. Now, how ironic is that this man of God is asleep while all this confusion and chaos is going on? Because you see, sleep can sometimes be our human way of trying to escape, especially when life seems to be going nowhere for us. All I want to do is sleep. I didn't even have the energy to get up out of bed. Just leave me alone and let me sleep. This brings us to life lesson number 4 real quick. A life that is running away from God is in a deep downward spiral. If you've ever found yourself in a downward spiral where everything seems to be going in the wrong direction for you, look up. Look up and make sure your focus is on God. And you will find that things will begin to change. And so this is all the summation of where we've been the past few messages. And so now we pick up where we left off last Sunday. And that is with Jonah with verse 6. Because you see, we're about to be introduced to another person, another character in the story, who's also in the boat. So the Bible says in verse 6, the captain went to him, the captain of the ship, and said, "How can you sleep? Get up and call on your God. Maybe he will take notice of us so that we will not perish." The captain basically repeats the words of God from verse 2. Did you catch that? Because what was the message that God gave to Jonah in verse 2? He said, "Get up. Jonah, I want you to get up and I want you to go to Nineveh. I want you to get up and do something." Many translations use the Hebrew word for arise. This is the exact same word that the captain speaks. So the captain is saying to Jonah the exact same message that God spoke to Jonah. He's saying, "Jonah, get up and do something." So here we see the author uses another sense of irony, because this Gentile sailor captain is speaking the same words that God had spoken to Jonah earlier. And then the sailors, they cast lots to find out who's responsible for bringing this terrible situation upon them. And the Bible tells us just as God was in control of this terrifying and crashing storm, so God was also in control of the sailors' lots. Remember the question I asked you to keep in the back of your mind at the beginning? Does God really see and know everything? God was not only in control of the storm, but God was in control of the casting of the lots, as the sailors' lot points straight to Jonah. It tells the sailors, Jonah's the one responsible. He's the reason for the problem. So to put it in our words today, Jonah was literally busted, wasn't he? He's busted. And so the sailors, they go after Jonah hard and they begin questioning him. They ask him, "Who are you? What is it that you have done to bring this calamity upon us?" In verse 8. And Jonah answers. I want you to look at Jonah's answer, and I want you to listen to Jonah's answer as I intend on reading it, because I believe this is exactly how Jonah probably presented it when he answered. Jonah answers, "Well, I am a Hebrew, and I worship the Lord, the God of heaven. The God of heaven who made the sea and the dry land." Jonah responds to the sailors by telling them, no doubt with what I was trying to convey was a sense of religious arrogance. "Ah, you silly Gentile pagan sailors. I'm a Hebrew. I'm one of God's chosen people. I'm a God-fearing Jew. That's who I am. He gives what is a polished Hebrew cliche of an answer, or what we would refer to here in Texas as a canned speech. And he tells them, you silly guys, don't you know one of God's chosen people when he's standing right here in front of you? I'm a God-fearing Jew. Jonah's religious theology is spot on. But you see, his beliefs are making no difference in the life that he chooses to live. Jonah is talking the religious talk with his claim, I am a Hebrew that worships the God of heaven. But his actions are not consistent with what he's saying. Jonah is not living the life. He's not walking the walk of one who trusts and believes in God. He's running the opposite direction of God. So once again, we see this other use of irony by the author of this book. And we learn there's a great problem in the heart of this prophet. Did you happen to catch the other use of irony that the author provides to us from this statement that Jonah makes? Jonah says again, and again, with a bragging tone. He's saying it bragging. I'm a Hebrew. I worship the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea. How's Jonah trying to escape from God? By the sea. But if God made the sea, then how's he going to be able to escape God by the sea? Justin, you have a comment?
It seems like they may be arguing over like the law of the land versus the law of the sea.
Okay.
Which is two completely different things, you know.
Sure. But in Jonah's answer, Jonah says, I worship the one true God who made the land and the sea. So Jonah's trying to answer that, right? By saying it's the one God in charge of everything. But again, the point is how is Jonah trying to escape from God? On the sea, which he claims his God has made and is in control of. So again, you see the irony here that's building up in the story? So this leads us to a personal growth challenge number 2 in what we see. A life that is growing spiritually shows a consistency between their words and their actions. And the question for us this morning is, do we have that consistency in our own lives? Or is there a difference between what we say and pray on Sunday mornings and what we do and the way that we live our lives Monday through Saturday? Ouch.
Yep.
Barry, step back. You're stepping on toes. No, I'm stepping on my own toes. Do we have that same inconsistency that we are seeing and reading about here in Jonah's life? I can stand up here in front of you and say all the right things here on Sunday mornings. And I can pound on the pulpit and say, you got to believe in the Bible, brother. But then go home and be a totally different person on Monday through Saturday. Wow. The question is, are people seeing the light of Jesus in us Sunday through Saturday, Sunday through Sunday, week after week, month after month, day after day, year after year? And this brings us quickly in closing to life lesson number 5. We can always say the right religious words, but if the non-believing world does not see us living it, it all means nothing. Or as we commonly say in Texas, talk is cheap, isn't it? Talk is cheap. Religious talk is cheap. Me standing up here and telling you how great God is on Sunday mornings and then going home and not believing it and living it Monday through Saturday, the light of God, the light of Christ won't be seen through me. And what we find is immediately after Jonah makes his statement of faith, his canned speech, we'll call it, the sailors ask, what have you done? And the author tells us the storm is only growing worse. The seas are getting rougher and rougher. And so they ask him out of desperation, what should we do to you to make this sea calm down for us? What do we need to do to you to make it better for me? And in verse 12, Jonah replies, matter-of-factly. He says, pick me up and throw me into the sea, and it will become calm. I know that it is my fault that this great storm has come upon you. Here we have the evidence I mentioned earlier that Jonah was a man who was depressed, probably severely depressed, and even willing to die. And believe it or not, this is not the first or only instance that we will see Jonah being willing to die in this book. He did not apparently care what happened to him next, because you see, his life was in a downward spiral. Remember the life lesson I gave you, life lesson number 4? A life that is running away from God gets caught in a downward spiral. And Jonah was living a downward spiral because here he was, a prophet, a man of God, living in a deep state of rebellion against the same God that he claimed to love and worship. This same God that he claimed to love and worship because he was a God-fearing Jew, Jonah was in rebellion against. So the sailors are afraid. They want to find out who is to blame for this. And Jonah says, it's me. I'm the one. I'm the cause for your problems. You want to fix your problems? Throw me overboard into the violent sea and the storm will calm down. Now, I don't know about you, but if I was on that boat and Jonah said that to me, my first reaction would have been, pick him up. He's gone, brother. Bye-bye. Thanks. Okay? Right? That would be our natural tendency. Look at verse 13.
It would calm his seas. It wouldn't calm everybody else's seas. We're still here.
Verse 13, yeah. Instead, the sailors rowed even harder to get the ship to the land. But the stormy sea was too violent for them, and they could not make it. So Jonah says, I'm the one. So just pick me up, throw me overboard. The storm will be immediately calmed. Your problems will be solved. And the sailors didn't do that. Instead, they spent more energy. They kept their lives in danger. They risked themselves to try to get the ship back to the land safely. But the author tells us that they couldn't do it. Why? Because God was in control of the storm. These Gentile, pagan sailors that had false gods offered Jonah compassion. They tried to save his life. Now here's the irony. God told Jonah, Jonah, get up, go to Nineveh for their wickedness, and tell them my message. And Jonah refuses to go because he didn't care about the people in Nineveh. Jonah wasn't willing to give them compassion. But the sailors on the boat risked their lives offering compassion to Jonah, the man of God. You see the irony here? You see the irony that is being used to teach us these lessons? They tried their best to save Jonah, while Jonah was fleeing God so that he wouldn't be able to help save other people.
Yeah.
But no matter how hard they tried, no matter their best intentions, the sailors could not get the boat to safety because God was in control of this storm, just as he was in control of everything else that would happen next in their lives. And we'll talk about that next Sunday. The point for us this morning is God's the same yesterday, today, and forever. If God was in control of all the things happening in the lives of those sailors, he's in control of all the things happening in my life, and God's in control of all the things happening in your life as well. What a great and awesome God we serve.